What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to Down to the Wire. I'm Brian Costa,
I'm Tyler Tucker.
and we've got a great episode in store for you. Tyler, welcome back to the show. First of all, glad to have you back, but we're going to be reviewing a lot of things today. We're going to be talking about the fall of the Minnesota Vikings against the New York Giants, the future of Tom Brady as he had a massive loss to the Dallas Cowboys. What's next for him? We're going to talk about the Jaguars' miracle comeback against the Los Angeles Chargers. And then we're also actually going to fill a playoff bracket for the remaining teams from the divisional round all the way to the Super Bowl. It's going to be a great episode, and I'm really excited for everything that's going to happen today. But again, Tyler, welcome back to the show. It's been a while, so I'm glad to have you back on. How you doing, man?
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me. As always, it's always a pleasure on Down to the Wire.
Yeah, man, I'm always glad to have you back. I always, you're a founding member of this podcast. Everything that you've done has been tremendous. I really can't thank you enough for all that you've done. And I got you back on today because your favorite team, your favorite football team, the Minnesota Vikings, have fallen out of the playoffs yet again. This time, similar to many of the ones before, Kirk Cousins, prime time, just seemed to not mesh well together. They fall to the New York Giants in wild card weekend. What are your initial thoughts to open up?
Yeah, I mean that one was tough. Finishing the season 13-4 and going into the playoffs very helpful. I mean, a lot of the talk was Super Bowl run, not first round exit. So,
Yeah.
I know there was a lot of debate on whether or not the Vikings were fraudulent or not, pretty much all season, and I wanted so badly to prove everyone wrong and just be like, no, we got a team finally. But unfortunately, just we were completely outplayed by the Giants in that game.
Yeah, man. I'm gonna say I hate to say it to you, but I thought the Vikings were gonna be in this situation. I had my doubts in Kirk Cousins, and I just thought that it felt kind of like a fake win team. I thought that, not a fake win team, but I thought that record seemed kind of fake. And it reminded me a lot of the 2019 Patriots, where, you saw a lot of those teams, they were rattling off some wins, but, they were getting some luck to break their way. And, you just didn't know what was going to happen. And, I didn't know if the New York Giants were really going to be able to come in there and do what they do, but my God, they were insane.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you can credit our terrible defensive play as well but I mean, Daniel Jones had the game of his lifetime. It was actually kind of impressive to watch as I was crying watching the game.
Yeah. Oh man, it was a rough one. I mean, like again, Kirk Cousins didn't even like play bad up until like the end. Like they were in it, like, and pretty much like there was no defense on either side for most of the game. It was just like pure offense. Daniel Jones really looked like Josh Allen out there on some plays. I think they ran him 17 times, which is the most they've ever run him in a game. Saquon Barkley turned back the clock and looked incredible. He had some rushing touchdowns of his own. And, they really came together. And this is the most, I think this Giants unit, like they really look like they're firing on all cylinders. And, I think they finally have the infamous boat picture curse off their back at this point. This is their first win since their Super Bowl title back in 2011. And, they have a chance, I think, to really make some noise in these playoffs.
Yeah, and once again, doing it on the backs of role players and no-name wide receivers. I mean, who the hell is Isaiah Hodgins? Where did he come from? But he's
Yeah.
out there catching tuds on us all day. So,
Yeah. Did you actually see his ankle after the game? Like, so he posted a photo of his ankle and it was black and blue just up the
oof.
entire thing. And, I guess some people were making fun of him for being a little slow on the field. And he ended up saying, no, don't you guys come at me for dogging it on the field. Like, I was hurt out there doing that. And the fact that he was still able to put up the performance that he did is incredible.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah. And I mean, like the Giants, they have other goods outside of Hodgins. They have some other quality receivers as well. You got Darius Slayton over there. And then you also have Richie James, who, I think he's really got a chance to really break out as a receiver in this league. If you get him, right, and you start targeting him and put him in a good system, I think that he could really be one of the premier receivers in this league.
Yeah, he looked good, and that whole core looked good against us. And maybe another credit to how bad the Vikings secondary is, but shout out to the Giants. They played really well.
Yeah. Now, Tyler, obviously, I gotta wonder, Kirk again in prime time just does not match up to what he is when the sun is in the sky. And I'm just wondering, what do you as a Vikings fan want to see this team do next? Do you want them to see Kirk Cousins give it one more year? He's technically under contract through 2023. Do you want to see them run it back with Kirk, or do you want to potentially go after something else now?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're kind of stuck with Kirk right now. I think we're at least going to see another year of Kirk Cousins on the Vikings because, it's still first year head coach. They're building into the system. I think really now what's going to happen is retooling of the defense and, getting a new coordinator and getting new players on that side of the ball. They're going to try to fix that and then see, okay, if we can't get it done, now we have the quarterback conversation. I think in the meantime, though, they will be stacking up on quarterback talent in the draft, looking to see maybe who's going to be next. I think that their eyes will be a little more forward set, but unfortunately for now, short term picture, I think Kirk Cousins is here to stay.
So you think that even when they decide to eventually move on from Kirk Cousins, they're going to go through the draft and try to build a guy. They're not going to go into free agency.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so
because I
because there's
want.
not really that many guys available that you can get every year.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the potential things I wanted to bring up to you is the fact that, as of right now, Lamar Jackson is not currently signed under a contract. And, do you think that the Vikings could potentially entertain an offer with someone like him? I know that they, when Kirk Cousins was a free agent, they gave him a pretty hefty contract and made him the highest paid quarterback in the league. Do you think they do something like that for Jackson?
Yeah, I mean, a player of his talent, you got to at least take a look at him, take a bite at him. I think he will end up going to greener pastures because I think there's places that have more money to offer him and better situations to offer him than us. That would be incredible if we could get him, but I don't think he will make it to our team.
Fair enough. Now, in terms of like you talked about restacking in terms of coordinators and trying to build some talent. I mean, on the receiving end, you guys are pretty much set. You have one of if not the best receiver in the game in Justin Jefferson. You really did a great job adding at tight end when you acquired TJ Hawkinson. Obviously, was 5 yard. He needs to run a deeper route than a 3 yard out route.
Yeah.
But that's no fault of his own. And then you have a good run game with Dalvin Cook in that backfield. So in terms of really stacking up offensively or even defensively, what are some key positions you want this team to target?
Yeah, so definitely the offensive line. That's always plaguing us. That needs to
Mhm.
once again be looked at and retooled. I like you said, wide receiver and tight end. I think we're fine. T.J. Hawkinson ended up being incredible this season, and Justin Jefferson is going to carry this wide receiving core no matter who's behind him. I think there's I think it's pretty almost a fact at this point that Adam Thielen is 1 foot out the door. He's looking onward, going somewhere else. But I don't think we'll miss him too much. I think KJ Osborne will step up into his role, and then we'll be able to find another slot guy that isn't named Jalen Rigor. Um,
Yeah.
and then on the defensive side, I think just corners, getting corners in the draft and just getting, more young, hungry guys. And I think we need to find a guy that Eric Kendricks can pass the torch to too, because I mean, if you look at a lot of the Giants receivers that were open during that game, it was because they were burning Eric Kendricks in coverage. And, it's no fault, an older middle linebacker really shouldn't be guarding these wide receivers one on one in the middle of the field. But he has lost a step. He's a vet now, and him, Pat Pete, Harrison Smith, all aging vets that have lost a step that either need some help, some split snaps with young guys that we need to start filtering in and building a younger, faster, hungrier defense.
Yeah, I think that you make a good point. When you mentioned drafting some O linemen, I mean, there is the old adage that you're never going to get flack for drafting an offensive lineman in the first round. I mean, unless the guy is a complete no name, and you had a situation like the Patriots where they took Cole Strange out of Chattanooga, and even doing something like that, there's always the idea that they're really trying to build the foundation of this team, the O line. And that's where the game is won at the NFL. It's won in the trenches. That's how football games are won. So I think I don't really know too much about the, lineman prospects coming out of the draft, but, say you could get a really solid guy out of Georgia or Alabama, one of those big guys, really could do you well going forward. Now, Tyler, I know, my Patriots have been out of it since the end of the regular season, and now your Vikings are joining me on the sideline. I got to wonder, who are you rooting for the remainder of the playoffs?
Oh man, that is such a tough question, but I ride with the Bengals hard. I love Joey Burrow.
Mhm.
Ever since watching him in 2019 at LSU, I really like him. I like his swag. I like his team, and that man deserves a Super Bowl. And then on top of it too, if I have to throw in another, I love the Jags and Trevor Lawrence too. I'm really excited to see what they can do. Obviously, they're going against the evil empire. We'll see what happens, but he's he's a young buck, and he'll do some damage out there.
Yeah. I mean, those are some great picks, Tyler, and I would probably go with any of those, but I got to say, there is one team that I'm really going for
Oh,
as these playoffs move on. And you know what? I really was a fan of the Giants in that game. And I think I'm going to rock with New York the rest of the way.
wow.
Yeah.
That hurts, but I can respect it.
And like the main reason I'm gonna probably rock with New York. My dad was a Giants fan growing up. He grew up in Long Island, and I've always said if the Pats are out of it and the Giants are in it, I'm gonna root for the Giants.
I like it.
So that's the reason behind that. But in all seriousness, I like your picks as well. We'll obviously talk about the future of those guys later on in the episode. But the next topic I wanted to bring up with you is a guy that, whether you're a Vikings fan, a Giants fan, and sometimes Giants fans will give him some flack, but really a fan of, mainly any team in the league, someone with the career achievements of Tom Brady is always going to be respected and, appreciated by many NFL fans around the league. Some, not some, but maybe not some, but a lot of them. And it makes me wonder, Tom Brady, the Bucs, they faced off against the Cowboys on Monday Night Football, wild card weekend, and just took an absolute shellacking from Dak Prescott and the boys, 31-14 loss. And really, that looks like a generous score at the end of the day because the Cowboys were up 24-0 at one point, really just were running away with the thing from the very start. And, Tom Brady had close to 70 passes in this game. I mean, he was trying to do anything they could. Tampa Bay just did not have a run game this year, and it was just absolutely atrocious. And I gotta wonder, what do you think the GOAT, at 46 years of age in August, what do you think Tom Brady's gonna do after this season?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think retirement is in the cards for him still. I think he'll at least try to squeeze out 1 to 2 more years. In my opinion, I see him, unless Sean Payton goes to the Chargers, I see him going wherever Sean Payton goes, and I think that might be the Raiders. I think they end up together on the Raiders and maybe try to turn that team around if they could convince Devontae Adams to stay.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't think of Sean Payton influencing Tom Brady's location, but I will say I also was gonna say he would probably go to the Las Vegas Raiders because I mean, it's all there for him. And mainly, I didn't even need Sean Payton to be there. All I needed was Josh McDaniels and Tom Brady to team up with some potential superstars again. And that's all I need. I agree with you. Tom Brady is the definition of a competitor. He's never going to back down from a fight. And if you think that he's going to walk away from a game like that and say, yeah, I'm done with pro football, you're insane. Like, he's not going to quit off that. And he is going to, if he was to go to the Las Vegas Raiders, they'd have tremendous talent, and frankly, I think could be more talented than the Bucs when he arrived there. You're going to have Devontae Adams, like you said, at that wide receiver spot. You're going to have Darren Waller, Josh Jacobs in the backfield, and then you're also going to have Hunter Renfrow as your slot receiver, which could rival some of the best guys like Wes Welker and Edelman if Brady could really train with them. So, I think that's probably going to be the best location for him if he could go somewhere in free agency. I know there were talks about him potentially returning to New England. I think those are all fraudulent. I don't think he's going back there. Would I love it? Would it be a cool storybook ending? Sure, but I don't think he wants to do it. And frankly, I don't know if that's the direction the Patriots really even want to go in.
No, I don't think so. I think honestly, you got to ride the wave with Mac for a little bit longer and just see what you can get out of him. Because he looks impressive at times, and I think he's held back by scheme. So
Yeah, I agree with you. And, the reason I say the Raiders are probably the best fit and not him returning to Tampa, I could see him potentially going back to Tampa Bay, but I just look at that team now and I think that they're just broken. Like I
yeah,
really do. Like they had no run game this year. And not that Tom Brady's needs to be reliant on a run game, but when you have basically the worst run game in the league, it's not going to help a 46-year-old quarterback. I mean, the man's a damn near senior citizen at this point. It's like you can't be doing that to that guy out there. He needs to have at least some other option. Like he's not Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, where he can use his athleticism to make plays in the backfield, turn broken plays into positive yardage. He needs something that he can at least rely on with a good run game. And if you were to put him out in Vegas with Josh Jacobs and the crew, he's going to get that. And I really think, could turn that team around.
yeah. Josh Jacobs is one of the premier running backs in the league, and I think he's going to even take a bigger step up next year. So that would be a lot of weapons there for Tom Brady at his disposal. That would be a scary team with him leading it.
Yeah. I mean, Tyler, it's crazy the fact that, just not even a year ago, we had a whole special with 6 people on talking about Tom Brady hanging it up. Like we were, going through like the scrapbook about like all the great memories of Tom Brady. And now it's just like, no, he's not going to retire now. He's going to be in the league for 3, 4, 5 more years. Like he's not done yet. And I mean, it's just insane. I mean, this man has gone through so much. He's lost his family. He's lost basically everything at this point. And he's just saying, you know what? Football is the only thing I know how to do, and I'm just going to go for it.
Yeah, it's truly incredible. The real Mamba mentality he has in him, the drive that keeps him going. He's an ultra competitor.
Yeah. Now, obviously, there were the rumors of him going back to New England, and different people have shot that down. He hasn't directly done it, but other guys like Rob Gronkowski have gone on podcasts and talked about, him, not wanting to really go back there. And he ended up saying, that's not Tom's opinion, but that's just my observation of it. Um, you think that the Pats should ride the wave with Mac? I don't know. I don't know if that's the right decision. Like, really? Like, do you think that they should really do that?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen Mac. I don't know. I feel like he's done as good as he can with the tools at his disposal. I think he's played well enough to where, they're still getting wins. Obviously, you're not making the playoffs every year, but he did have a good season where you guys did make the playoffs, and I think he's right now currently just held back by a swirl of, coaching blame games and issues and too much of a reliance on the run game. But I think he has some talent, and I think he should be trusted for a little bit longer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna give him flack for this year. I'm gonna say that he was kind of cursed with just with having to deal with a Matt Patricia led offense, which should not be a sentence that is uttered. The fact that a guy who's been a traditional defensive coach his entire life getting that offensive job, it shouldn't have never happened. And many of us, rightly so, said it was not going to be the right decision from the start. Um, the Pats obviously are making a lot of moves right now in this offseason. They've basically said like, all right, we're going to do X, Y, and Z when it comes to the coaching staff. Patricia has since been not necessarily fired, but they've said he will not be the offensive play caller in 2023. So good enough for me. And then the other thing too that they've done is they've brought back Gerard Mayo to the coaching staff. Mayo was obviously rumored to be going to, other teams, like they were going to be interviewing him for head coaching positions. The fact that we were able to lock him in at this point, I think that Gerard Mayo is going to be the next head coach of the New England Patriots. I think that them making that move is very similar to what they did with Josh McDaniels and the deal that got him out of Indianapolis. Because when they made that deal, I think Robert Kraft told Josh McDaniels, hey, Bill Belichick's going to go for this type of record right here, and you're going to be the next head coach once he's done. Obviously, that didn't happen. McDaniels has now gone to the Raiders. And I think what Kraft is telling Gerard Mayo potentially is, hey, Bill Belichick is trying to break Don Shula's record. He's maybe 2-3 seasons away from that. Wait it out here, and you'll be the next coach of the greatest franchise in all of pro football. I think that's the pitch he made to him.
It's a tough offer to pass up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's at least what I think he's going to end up doing. And I don't know, like, I think that Gerard Mayo is enough of, from the Belichick coaching tree to where he trusts him to probably take over the reins. But I think he's also more of a Mike Vrabel type where he kind of is of his own mind. Like he's, a former player. He's not like a Belichick underling, like a McDaniels, like a Bill O'Brien, like Matt Patricia, for example, where they're just going to be yes men for whatever he does. I think that, he's enough of an independent mind to where he can make his own decisions and, run a football team the way he wants to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's at least what I think of that. But, what do you think?
Yeah, it's an interesting move. It, it's cool that if that is the case, and they're kind of he gets to learn more under Belichick and kind of expand his role, and allowing Belichick to chase that record too. We'll have to see how it plays out, but that's definitely an interesting scenario right there.
Yeah. I mean, do I want Belichick to break Shula's record? Sure. I would love to see him see him have that, because that would, I think, just further cement his legacy as the greatest coach in NFL history. But what I don't want to see happen is the Pats just hold on to Belichick and, have him just like really struggle to get that record, and having that, record of 2 to 3 seasons potentially, that potential track of getting that record in 2 to 3 seasons, turning it into him getting it in like 3 to 4, 5 to 6, not 5 to 6, because he's going to get it before that. But I don't want it to become like this really dragged out thing to where the Pats are, terrible, and they're just like really just trying to milk every game out of him and trying to get anything they can. If like he's not able to get it towards the end, and he's completely lost his fastball and like they're done, I would much rather see them just move on, get Gerard Mayo in there, get a fresh face in there, and just start, anew.
Yeah, no sense in beating that dead horse.
Yeah, that's my fear as to what could happen. But I don't really know what's going to happen from there, so we're just gonna have to wait and see. But Tyler, I want to move on to the next topic now on the show, and as a Pats fan, I got the the luxury of seeing the New England Patriots come back from a 25-point deficit against the Atlanta Falcons in Super Bowl 51, led by Tom Brady, and it was an incredible sight to see. This Saturday, we got to see, an even larger deficit get overcome, and it was the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Los Angeles Chargers, and coming back from being down 27 points. And I just got to say, you can take the Chargers out of San Diego, but you cannot take San Diego out of the Chargers. It really,
So true.
it's terrible. I mean, like, how do you let that happen? I mean,
Yeah.
this is the definition of Charger football right here, guys. Like, I mean, this is embarrassing. I mean, the Chargers, I remember in 2010 had the number 1 ranked offense, the number 1 ranked defense, and missed the playoffs. Somehow they managed to top that with this horrendous thing. I mean, Trevor Lawrence had 4 picks in the first half. How do you do that?
Absolute choke job. That's really how you do it. And I would know about fantastic choke jobs being a Vikings fan. But honestly, I as much as it was the Chargers choking, it was also Trevor Lawrence absolutely stepping up to the plate and getting every one of those picks back in the second half and going, all right, like it's time. We got to get these points back.
Yeah, no, I got to agree with you, because I mean, I don't know how he did it, because I don't know if you've ever seen a Trevor Lawrence pregame speech. There were some going around where he was just saying, "Hey, come on, guys! Like we can just like really kick their ass. Like let's go." And like that's all he says, and they would go out and they'd like kill a team. And I mean, credit to him. I mean, if many quarterbacks throwing 4 picks in the first half, they would just be trying to do damage control from then on out and would play the game very carefully. That wasn't how Trevor Lawrence played that game. He was really trying to, push the ball down field. He had that great ball to Christian Kirk and other guys further along in the game. And, credit to them. I mean, like as much of a Chargers choke job as this was, the Jaguars did stick true to their guns. And, Doug Peterson even said at halftime, hey, like, I think we can still be in this game and, we have a chance to win this. He said that at his halftime interview. So, they believed in their ability to come back from this, and credit to them.
Yeah, and another thing too, you need to attribute it to is the absolute set that Doug Peterson has on him. Because there was one play, I think it was 4th and 1,
Yeah.
and he called this just like, I think it was three backs, and he had like this end around sweep that took it outside rather than you got Trevor Lawrence, the dude's huge, he could just jump right over the line, but he takes it around and he ended up getting like 36 yards out of it, and that was like the game-changing play. So
Yeah.
his play calling was incredible during that.
Yeah. And I mean, listen, as a Pats fan, I've always kind of had it out for Doug Peterson because of what he did to us in Super Bowl 52. But the man is a good coach. And I mean, he is really good at what he does. He took a year off from the league last year. He comes back to the Jaguars. And, I ended up saying, like, Doug Peterson's a quality coach, but the Jaguars have always been a struggle. Like, no matter who goes down there, it just seems like that franchise has been cursed for whoever's the coach of that team. And, he was able to really unlock something with these guys in the past couple of weeks. I mean, credit to them for what they've been able to do. I do just want to say quickly about the Chargers. When Trevor Lawrence was throwing all those first half picks, he, three of them were to Asante Samuel. And I got to say, when I heard Al Michaels, who was back on NBC, which was really nice to hear, actually, kind of like was a nice little throwback. To hear Al Michaels say picked off by Asante Samuel, I got transported back to like 2006, man. I felt like I was a kid again. Like not even watching the Patriots, but just being in the other room, like playing with like action figures or something, and then hearing just like the TV in the background, hearing that name. The fact that that guy's in the league is crazy.
Yeah, and for Al Michaels to call his fathers and then his sons too, it shows his longevity too. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
Listen, I gotta say this. Like, I'll give Al Michaels the credit for sticking around as long as he has, but he's been catching a lot of flack recently for his call of that game, at least towards the end, where you have again, one of the largest comebacks in playoff history for a football team, and to have a very unenthusiastic end of game field goal call, it's made a lot of people mad with the end of that game.
Yeah, and rightfully so, because I mean, you got a lot of guys that would throw a lot of energy into that booth. Even a Pat McAfee type.
Oh my
Someone
God.
who's an outsider like that. I mean, he wouldn't shut up at the end of that game
Yeah.
if he was in there.
Yeah. I mean, and listen, Al Michaels has seen some greatness in his time in the booth. So maybe he's just not fazed by it anymore. I mean, he saw the Miracle on Ice comeback against the Russians in 1980 at Lake Placid. So he's seen a lot of great moments across all sports really by this point. But I think that he's probably just still in a coma from all those terrible Amazon Prime games he had to call this year. Cause listen, he probably got a bag from them, but man, that's got to be like some of those games, man. I don't blame him for just wanting to check out. So, I can understand to where, maybe he's not going to be as energetic as he once was, but man, you got to have a little something more there.
I totally agree.
Yeah. And the only real defense I can give for him outside of that too is that I guess there was like a flag on the play, but it was on the defense. So he might have seen the flag get thrown and just like gave no effort on the call. Cause he was like, oh, like this play is going to get called back. But like there was something about that. And it didn't really bother me at first, because I think when you're seeing a lot of plays like that, especially from the winning side, think about this, like as a football fan, I don't know if unless the guy's like screaming his ass off and is like going crazy, like there are some calls where I just remember the reaction of everyone in the room around me to what was going
Mhm.
on the TV rather than the announcer himself. Like when James White dove into the end zone at the end of Super Bowl 51 to win it for the Pats, I don't remember Joe Buck saying a thing on the TV. I just remember, me, my brother, my dad jumping around screaming. Like that's all I remember.
Mhm.
So like, I mean, having a good game winning call is great, and it's etching your name in history, but it does only get you so far.
For sure. I will say though that to a counterpoint, one I can remember where the announcer made a clear difference was Yanks sideline. touchdown. That was pretty incredible
I
watching
had a
that live.
feeling.
And,
I had a feeling you were going to
everyone
say that one.
remembers that. But
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was as good as it could really get. I mean, again, like when they are good, they're almost moments in history. Like it's literally almost like a chapter of like a history book when you see something like that happen. So, I mean, like it can make or break a game and a call. So, a lot of different things to take away there, but the Jags now are going to be heading to Kansas City, and I got to say, Trevor Lawrence has never lost on a Saturday, and Pat Mahomes has never failed to make the AFC Championship game in his time as a starter. One of those records is going to be broken this weekend. Which one are you rolling with, Tyler?
wow, that is so tough. That is so tough.
Because Trevor Lawrence only lost twice in his career at Michigan, but those were both in the playoffs, and neither of those were on a Saturday.
Yeah, honestly, I think as good as Trevor Lawrence and the Jags are this year, it's not their time yet. It's
Yeah.
still Mahomes' kingdom, and I think KC will be moving on to the AFC Championship.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably a good point. I think that the Jags, they're going to have a better showing, I think, than they did against at least a better start than they did rather against the Chargers. I don't think we're going to see Trevor Lawrence throw 4 first half picks again. I don't think, we're going to see nearly as many mistakes as we did with that. So I think that we're definitely going to see a better showing from them. But Tyler, I want to, at this point, transition over to our final topic of the day, which is going to involve us actually bracketing off in a bracket style, kind of going through these final playoff games and predicting who is going to come out the championship. So I'm going to pull up a little bracket we have right here. Can you see it, Tyler?
Yep, I got it.
All right. So this is a bracket of all the remaining teams in the league. So can you see the bottom teams as well?
Yep.
Okay. So you ended up saying that you have the Chiefs currently beating the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yep.
So you have them moving on to the AFC Championship game. The next game out of the AFC I want to touch on with you is the Bengals and Bills game. Obviously, it's the first time they'll be meeting since Damari Hamlin's very scary injury back back in week 17. That was going to be a really, when that game happened in the regular season, there was a lot of things riding on it at that point. Now these teams facing off at Orchard Park, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, they're going to be at the top of their game. Who do you see coming out of there?
I like the Bengals. I think the Bills are beatable right now, especially after that game they played in Miami. They didn't look their absolute best. They didn't look, untouchable. I think the
Mhm.
Bengals can pull it off.
Yeah. I also like the Bengals in that game. I think that, you know, I think that just in terms of a team, I think that they have I think they're, deeper than the Bills are. I think they have a better defense than the Bills. And just offensively, I think that they'll be able to, go at the Bills much better than Buffalo can. Credit to Josh Allen and what they've been able to do this season. It'd be not, I would like to root for, the miracle of them, coming out and, playing for DeMar and really, having a miracle run to the Super Bowl. But I just don't see it this weekend. I see the Bengals coming out on top in that game. To take it over to the NFC side, Tyler, I want to start in that top corner with another divisional matchup. We got Giants Eagles. As of right now, Jalen Hurts is not on the Eagles injury report, so he could potentially be, playing in that divisional round game. If so, it's a complete game changer for the Eagles. Hurts was, a borderline MVP candidate at one point this season. And, he's going to really, if he's at full strength and, he's able to get back into gear with this Eagles team, they're not to be messed with. But the Giants also, with the performance they showed against your Vikings, also shouldn't be questioned either. Who do you got?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think I'm gonna ride the hot hand. I like the Giants in this.
Yeah.
The Eagles had an incredible season and they looked unbeatable for a long time, but I think they're pretty beat up at this point. And even if Hurts isn't on the injury report, I think he'll still not 100% be what he was, peak season form. So
Yeah.
I like the Giants by a slight edge.
Yeah. That's my thoughts on them too. I've also been in favor of the Giants this year, as you can now see. But yeah, I like the Giants, and similar to my fears with the Vikings, I think that the Eagles right now are a paper tiger. I really do. I think that they have great weapons, and I think that they were able to have an incredible run during the regular season. But now with playoff football, guys are going to be hitting harder. The lights are brighter, and I just think the Giants are more made for this type of scenario. So I also have the Giants moving on. In the NFC, this bracket was made before the finale of the Bucs and Cowboys game. Obviously, we now have the Cowboys facing off against the San Francisco 49ers. It's a playoff matchup that's, been, throughout NFL history. We've seen some great games come out of that, like Dwight Clark's catch from Joe Montana and some many others. So, who do you have coming out of that game? Dak
I
Prescott versus Brock Purdy.
I think it's the Niners, no question. They just are too hot, too strong, too many weapons right now, and Brock Purdy looks really good.
Yeah. I mean, I hate the fact that we're agreeing so much. I also have the Niners in this, but I do think that I will say this for Dak Prescott. I think he had his best game as an NFL quarterback on that wild card game, because he showed out, the rushing touchdown, the 4 passing touchdowns. That's the best I think we've ever seen Dak Prescott, in a high stakes scenario. He balled out in that game. So I do want to give him credit for that. So I think that Brock Purdy and that team is also going to be too much for them to handle, because I think that, their defense is just way too elite. They're somehow better than that 2019 defense. But, I also have the San Francisco 49ers moving on. And with that, Tyler, we'd have a Chiefs Bengals AFC Championship rematch. I got the Bengals moving on to the Super Bowl. I think that, Joe Burrow has Pat Mahomes' number, and as great as the Chiefs are, I think the Bengals are just going to give them their money. And I think that, the fact that, Burrow has been able to go into Arrowhead before and withstand all that's happened there, I think they can run it back.
Yeah, I have to agree with you again. I like the Bengals here. I think they're poised and ready for a deep run.
Mm-hmm. And then out of the NFC, Tyler, I want to know, who do you have going to the Super Bowl? Do you like the Brock Purdy miracle run?
The Niners aren't going to be stopped. I think they take it all the way.
Yeah. Now, Tyler, this is where I differ from you. I got the Giants going in,
Wow.
and here's why. I think that if the Giants can play similar to how they did against the Vikings, I think that if they were able to run Daniel Jones the way they did with Josh, like in that Josh Allen type set, and utilize him like that, I think that they could potentially take on the Niners and potentially upset them. I think Brock Purdy right now is in a good situation. I think that, for his sake, he's probably naive to what's actually going on around the league. I don't think he realizes the gravity of what's currently happening, because, he's kind of just young. Like, he doesn't really, he probably doesn't realize, oh, shoot, I'm playing for a Super Bowl title right now. Like, he might understand what he's playing for, but, these guys that have been in the league 9, 10, 11 years, they realize, probably the rarity of, being able to get to a Super Bowl, more than he does. So I think that the Giants could capitalize on that and move on to the Super Bowl. So Tyler, you have a Niners Bengals Super Bowl matchup. I have the Giants and the Bengals. Who do you have coming up? Who do you have coming out on top?
Once again, another super tough call, but I think the Bengals finally get theirs. I really like the Bengals this year.
Yeah. Tyler, I gotta lie. This was my bracket matchup. I also have the Bengals coming out on top. And I have for the tiebreaker, that's typically how many points you think are going to be totaled in that game. I think I said I forget the exact score total I came up with, but I had about 55 points being the total amount of points scored in that game. So I think that, if the Giants were to get there, they could potentially have like one of those miracle runs, but I think the Bengals would just be, a roadblock for them. They would just really take care of business against them. But I could also see the 49ers continuing their run. If Brock Purdy can, continue his dominance, because he's been incredible for this team, I think they could really go far.
Yeah, that they have a scary team, and it's crazy that their offense is as stacked as it is, and we're barely talking about the defense, but it's the number one in the league, and they're just as unstoppable.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they're incredible this year, and the fact that somehow this 49ers offense has been able to be better with Brock Purdy as their quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo or Trey Lance is incredible. I mean, from going as the last guy selected in the draft to, to the number one quarterback on, potentially the best team out of the NFC this year. It's an incredible story. I mean, it's the things that they write movies about, and, credit to Purdy because, it's not just like, he's making the best of a situation. He's a damn talent. He's a damn good, talented quarterback. I mean, he's able to make plays for himself. He had that one touchdown, I think, to his Elijah Mitchell. The pocket's collapsing around him, steps up, finds him on the right side, and was able to get an easy 6. So, credit to him for what they were able to do.
He played incredibly against the Seahawks.
Yeah, I mean, let me stop this share real quick. Yeah, he played incredible, and I mean, it was a great story for Geno Smith, but the 49ers were just too much for him to handle in that game. And, it sucks to see the end of that. Now, to kind of backtrack a little bit, the Niners will be taking on the Cowboys this weekend. The Dallas Cowboys are going to potentially be in a bit of trouble after the scene that we saw on Monday night. They were firing on all cylinders, taking care of the Bucs pretty much in every facet of the game, except on special teams, where their kicker, who was actually my fantasy kicker this year, Brett Maher, missed 4 extra points in a row. And like at a certain point, you just start to feel bad for a guy. Like it got really bad. Like you missed 1 extra point. At this point in the league, it's pretty routine, not going to lie. But as soon as that second one went through, I was like, even on the second one, I think you can almost kind of like make fun of it a little bit. It's like, oh, like how like the Cowboys are like are kind of, struggling right now. But once you get to like 3, 4 missed kicks, it's like this thing's like getting bad, and you really start to kind of sympathize for the guy.
Yeah, it's like watching a car accident. At some point, you just can't look away.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Tyler, how familiar you are with the yips, but it's something that you see a lot in baseball players. One of the most famous cases of it is with Ricky Ankiel, who was a pitcher for the Angels back in the early 2000s, was a Rookie of the Year candidate at one point. And, he ended up saying, I threw 1 pitch and, it was just one of those traditional wild pitches, gets away from the guy, sailed to the backstop. And after that, couldn't really never find the strike zone ever again. It was so bad. In fact, he had to go down to the minors and learn to become an outfielder. So, it's something that can happen to a lot of athletes, and there's really no explanation for it. But, have you ever experienced, the yips in like golf or anything like that in your time?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna go to. I think it's kicking in football. It's such a mental thing, and I think it compares so well to golf because pretty much everything it's all mental. And yeah, I think anyone who's played golf for a long period of time has gone through maybe a different set of yips. Like with putting, I've lost my feel. I have stone hands. I don't know where the ball's going anymore. With your driver, it's you're slicing it every time. I think we've all been there. Nothing career ending yet, but I've had my moments for sure.
Yeah. Tyler, frankly, I almost wish I could have the yips in golf, but I'm just not good enough at golf yet to even experience the yips. So that's my issue with that. But I have experienced it in one thing before, and I will say it hasn't really ever been baseball. I've had certain things where, I'm just struggling at the plate. I'm trying to, get into the right stance, but none of them are as memorable for me as something that happened to me back in high school track. I was, as a sprinter, I, was able to always get out of the blocks fine. But I also, when I wasn't sprinting, I also competed as a shot put thrower, kind of just for fun. It was just like, when you're a sprinter, you're running for, I ran the 50-meter dash and I ran the 4x2. So for a total amount of exercise for the night, I was running 30 seconds. And like, you get bored as an athlete, and it's like, all right, like I don't want to just run for 30 seconds and be here for 3 hours. So I decided, all right, I'm going to pick up shot put. I'm going to learn to do this and, just have some fun with it. And I remember I'm just like chilling out at practice. And, when you're throwing a shot put, at least in one form, you kind of get down to this crouch and you kind of have to like do this kick out and then like turn and throw and do what you got to do. And it takes like, you have to kind of get down there and be balanced, and, it's all about timing and different things like that. And I remember I'm at practice, I'm down in my crouch, and I'm just like going, all right, 1, 2. And right before I could go to that third kick out where I decide to, turn and throw the shot put ball, someone on the team just like came up to me and just like, I guess like surprised me, or ended up saying like, "Hey, Brian." And like all of a sudden I kind of just like lost my balance. I stepped out and I was like, "Oh, shoot. Like, hey, you scared me." Like, all good. And, I got back down and I just could not find my balance. And for, I swear, like a month, I was just struggling to get back to where I was. And it's a frustrating thing because, because what's frustrating about it is that, you have the athletic ability and that, the ability to succeed, but your mind is just not letting you get there.
It's a tough thing battling your own head. It's like a self-made prison, but it's one of the hardest things.
Yeah. I mean, there's really no science behind it, but some guys have talked about it. Another famous case of the yips came, my dad likes to talk about this, but it was former New York Mets catcher Mackie Sasser. He had a case of the yips to where he could not throw the ball back to the pitcher, but he was able to gun out a runner at second base, no problem, because it wasn't something he had to think about. He would get the ball and just absolutely gun a guy out. But just the casual throwing the ball back to the pitcher, he had to tap his glove 1, 2, 5 times before he could even muster up the courage to get it back out there because he didn't want to overthrow the guy. And
Wow.
yeah, it's crazy. And I think that he ended up saying that, his reason for having it was that he actually used to be a quarterback in high school. And I guess that whenever he would pump the ball into his glove, it would remind him of, being a quarterback, going to like pump the ball and then like taking a sack. So like it would trigger, I guess it like triggered something in his mind and would get him all out of whack. So, something, it could be like some, not like a PTSD thing, but just like some sort of, thing in the recesses of your mind. And it's crazy, man.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff, and people tend to forget how, besides the physical aspect of sports, the mental side is such a big part of it, and you got to train your mind just as much as you train your body.
Yeah. I mean, that is the craziest part of it. And, credit to these guys, these athletes, like the fact that, they're not just, great physically, they're also really strong mentally. And, for Brett Maher, I hope that he can overcome this, come back out. I don't remember when they're playing, Saturday or Sunday, but whenever they play this weekend, I wish him success in being able to go out there and compete. The Cowboys said that we're not going to cut him. Even though like some guys like Skip Bayless, obviously they were saying like, oh, like you need to move on now. Once a kicker goes south, like they never come back. So, I wish him luck. I hope that he can figure it out, but we'll have to wait and see. So, Tyler, I hate to do it to you, but now we are officially down to the wire. We're going to wrap up what we talked about in this episode and then send all you beautiful people on your way. Tyler, thank you so much for coming back on. I appreciate you, giving us an in memoriam to your football team. I'm sorry again I had to do this to you, but it was the perfect opportunity.
It's all good. It's all love on Down to the Wire.
Yeah. Now, obviously, we talked about Kirk Cousins, the Minnesota Vikings, really just having no answer against the New York Giants in the end. Put up a good fight, but it just came up like 5 yards short, and it was unfortunate. After that, we talked about the future of Tom Brady after his defeat against the Dallas Cowboys. Will this be the end of him? Tyler and I do not think so. After that, we talked about the Jaguars' miracle comeback against the Los Angeles Chargers, down 27 points. And we finished things off today talking about the remaining teams in the league, filling out a playoff bracket, and giving our scenarios for who we have going to the Super Bowl and winning it all this year. All in all, it was a great time. If you guys want to follow us on, streaming services, anything, we're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that stuff. We're available on YouTube. And then, if you want to follow us for any updates, we're on Instagram at down.tothewire. So give us a follow on there if you want to have any updates or just know when the next show is going to be out. We'll also post some little clips here and there from the show, different highlights. So, be on the lookout for that. But from Down to the Wire, I'm Brian Costa.
I'm Tyler Tucker.
And we hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Take care and peace out.